What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. My name's Adam. This is To Everything Outdoors. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you're new here, I hope today I earn your subscription. In this video today, I'm going to be going over my favorite all-time soft plastics for smallmouth and how I rig them up. Let's get to it. Tubes. Talk about smallmouth and soft plastic, I gotta talk about tubes. It is my all-time go-to confidence bait on lakes that I'm not familiar with. They are extremely versatile in how you can rig them up. It is very effective on those lakes where there's a lot of pressure, because even though the tube is becoming more popular now, it's still not a tool in every fisherman's arsenal. Alright, so I'm going to go over some of my favorite tubes, my favorite tube brands, and I'm going to show y'all how I rig them up for smallmouth fishing. Alright, I laid out some of my favorite tubes and my favorite terminal tackle for tubes. But I gotta say, my all-time favorite brand for tubes is definitely Venom Lures. I've been using these the longest. Great color selection. They got all kinds of different colors. This Smoky Melon right here is one of my all-time favorites, especially for those St. Clair smallmouth. But I also do use Snack Daddy lures. And those are mainly the two brands that I use. Now, I do have a bunch of miscellaneous ones, some Mismos in here, Honey Creek Tackle, some other ones I like to use, but most of the time I'm using the Venom or the Snack Daddy. Terminal tackle, everybody. Terminal tackle for tubes. And 90% of the time, I'm using Venom Lures terminal tackle. Whether it's their 6-degree tube jig, one of my favorites, or their goofball or stupid tube style jig head. I will sometimes use Secret Lures. They have a great stupid tube head, and if I'm fishing some super deep river current, I'll use some of these Domos custom, because they make them in like 3/4 and ½ ounce and all that. So, but most of the time I'm going to be using the Venom stuff, just because I've used it so long and I trust it. Alright, start off with tubes. We'll start with the simple one, just a regular tube jig. I try to fish with this as much as I can get away with it. This is my preferred method. Obviously the hookup ratio is much greater with the exposed hook, but let's get into how I rig it up. It's real easy. Alright, got a 4-inch Salt Series Venom tube. The green pumpkin goby, one of my favorite colors. And this is real simple. All you do is just stick the head of the lead all the way to the head of the tube. Sometimes you need to get the lead a little wet so it slides in there a little better, especially on like a 1/4 ounce jig heads and all that. So yeah, just force that lead all the way to the head of the tube, and then just force the eye right through, and there it is, ready to fish. Stupid style rigging, or as Venom Lures calls it, the goofball. This is a great presentation for where there's a lot of hang-ups. I like throwing this on Brookville Lake here in southern Indiana, because there's a lot of basketball-sized chunk rock that if you're throwing the exposed hook, you're going to get hung up by every other cast. I also like throwing this stupid style in the river. It's almost like cast it over and not have to worry about it kind of deal. The downside is less hookups. Hookup ratio is not as good. So, all right, let's get into how to rig this guy up. Now, rigging up the stupid style does take a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's no big deal. What I like to do is hold the jig over the tube just to kind of get an idea of where it's going to lay inside that tube, and then memorize where that tube is coming out, I'm sorry, where the hook shaft is coming out of the tube, right there where my thumb's pointing. So I got that spot memorized. I'm going to put the hook through the back of the tube, lower it down, and then pop it out where I marked it with my thumb. Now you get your tentacles out of the way and then pull the lead all the way to the bottom, to the head of the tube, and then flip it over. Once you got it flipped over, get it lined up with the back of the tube. Hope I'm showing you guys this on the camera. And then force the hook through the body. Then pop the eye through the front of the tube. And there you go. Rigged up, ready to fish, stupid style. And the last way I'm going to talk about rigging up the tube is with just a standard weightless EWG hook. I do this when I want to fish this tube Texas style. And it's a very effective method, especially if you don't have any tube jigs. You can always use this method and put whatever weight you want up here. So let's get into rigging it up. Alright, same thing as before. I always hold up my hook over my tube body and see where it's going to lay. See where that hook is going to pop out of the tube right there. This time I'm coming through the head of the tube, right where I marked my spot. And fish your hook down through the rest of it. Line it up on your tube body. Fold it over. And push your hook through the tube. And there you go. Rigged up weightless EWG. Ready for a Texas or Carolina rig. Guess I'll bring up how I use a drop shot sometimes with a tube, and basically I just use some of these smaller Mismos tubes and just work that drop shot hook right through the head, just like that. You can use your imagination that this is the drop shot. I use that method up in St. Clair a lot. Alright, now we've gone over the tubes, let's talk about the Ned rig. Just like the tube, it's extremely versatile, extremely effective at those tight lip bass, and I love throwing it. I really do. It has such a natural action in the water. You can swim them, you can bounce them, you can hop them, you can drag them, and they catch smallmouth. I'm going to go over my favorite Ned rigs and my favorite way to rig them all up. Alright, let's talk about the Ned rig. A lot of different ways to rig them up. A lot of different scenarios. I'm just going to go over what I use the most for smallmouth. Alright, let's talk my favorite brands for Ned rigging. Z-Man, the original one I tried. I love their TRD. I love their crawl, if I can find it. No, there it is. Just a real durable, tough, floating plastic. Can't go wrong with Z-Man. The other brand I like to use, Rabbit Baits. They're really cool. They've integrated some fur into their lures. Catch Company. Love the Sakoshi bug. Incredibly durable. Smallmouth gobble it up, especially on the river. And of course, the Nico bait. my new all-time favorite smallmouth river bait. I threw this, see the natural color, I threw this the last 4 trips on the river last year exclusively, just because they couldn't say no to it. Let's see, Be Real. My buddy Mike makes these, they're awesome. Started using these last summer. And sometimes I'll use the English Choice stuff. I do love this little 3-inch Ned hog. But those are pretty much the brands of plastic I use for Ned rig. But let's talk terminal tackle for Ned rigs. I mainly use 3 different brands: Venom Lures, Crawdads Fishing Tackle, and Lifted Jigs. These are the mini DK rigs that Venom Lures makes. This is a Lifted Jigs EWG. These are some Jade's jigs that I just got. I haven't tried them out yet, but they look awesome. And these are the Crawdads Fishing Tackle. Really can't go wrong with either one. They have different applications. Obviously, I use the weedless style when I need to, and when I can get away with it, I'm using the open exposed hook Ned head. But let's get into how I rig up these Ned rigs. Let's get it started with the regular Ned jig. I try to throw the exposed hook, regular Ned jig, as often as I can, just because the hookup ratio is so much greater than with the weedless setups. So let's get one rigged up. Alright, let's get it started here. I picked out a Z-Man Big TRD. I'm going to pair it with a Crawdads Fishing Tackle purple Ned jig. And just like anything else with plastics, I like to line it up, see exactly where my hook is going to lie inside the body of my plastic. So I'm going to memorize where that hook is sticking out of the body, and then I'm going to drive the hook straight down the middle and try to pop it out right where I memorized. Then force your plastic up on the hook keeper, or on the bait keeper. There you go. Ready to fish. Alright, similar scenario but a smaller presentation. I'm going to go with a Crawdads Fishing Tackle short shaft Ned with a Rabid Baits crawl. Really cool looking bait. Gets tore up on the river. So same thing. I'm going to line up my hook, see where it's going to come out. So I like it too with the baits with spots on them, because now I have a target right there. I don't know if the camera can see that. But same thing. Just going to drive the shaft of that hook straight down the middle. And there you have it. That's going to get 8 on the river. Let's talk weedless Ned jigs. Now, these are the presentations that I'm going to be using probably 70% of the time. I really like this method. It's extremely effective on the smaller rivers I fish for my kayak. I can throw this over a log into some cover, work it up over that cover, and not have to worry about getting hung up all the time. Now, the downside is, of course, lower hookup ratio, because sometimes that fish doesn't get that in its mouth all the way, and especially if you have a weak hook set, that hook's not going to get pinned in that fish's mouth. But I love this method, and if you've watched my videos, you'll see that it's obviously effective. So let's get into the different ways I rig it up. So I picked out 4 different combinations, and I'm going to show you guys how I rig up each one. The good news is that the EWG weedless Ned is actually easier to rig up than the regular Ned jig, because you don't have to drive that hook shaft straight down the middle of the body. That's where it gives a lot of people the trouble. But let's get to how I rig up each one of these. Alright, let's start off with the 3-inch Ned. This is a B-Reels bait. And I'm going to pair it up with a Venom Lures mini DK rig. And just like anything else, hold up your hook to your lure and line it up. See where your hook's going to come out. Alright, so I've got that picked out. So drive my hook through the head. Work your bait up. Push it flush to the Ned head. And same thing. Line up where your hook's going to go through. Make sure it's straight on the back side. And punch your hook through. And here's a little secret. Take just a little bit of super glue and touch that. That's a little bit too much, but hold that onto the head of the jig so that it sits. That way you don't have to worry about it sliding down when you're fishing. There you go. Let's rig up this Nico Bates Helgermite. This is the natural color, one of my favorite colors for the rivers around here. It's a lifted jigs, EWG Ned jig. This exact combo was very good to me this year. So, same thing. Hold it up, line it up. Put the end of your hook right in his head. Work it all the way down to the lead. And line it up on the body. And there you have it. Tuck the hook in just a little bit, and you are ready to hit the river. That is one of my favorite combos right there, everybody. Got my largest smallmouth on the river with this exact combo. Next up, let's do the TRD crawl from Z-Man. Love these little crawls. And we'll pair it up with a Jade's Jig EWG Ned. I don't feel like I'm repeating myself, but line up where your guy's going to go through. Once you get the hang of doing this, it'll come as second nature. This is another reason why you want to use a short shaft hook for this little guy. This hook's almost too long, but I think I could make it work. Doing this through a camera lens is not the easiest, I'll tell you that right now. There we go. Not the best job, but get the job done. Same thing, put a little drop of super glue right there and you won't have to worry about that all day. Look at that little combo. Tell me that ain't gonna get ate. And lastly, I got a Z-Man hula stick and a Venom Lures. This is the DK rig. This is the regular DK rig with the longer shaft. So let's line her up. There we go. Got my spot marked. Make sure your hook's going in straight. Work your hula stick up to the head, and same thing. You want to line up where you want your hook to go back into your plastic. Bam, just like that. Your weedless ready to go. This is a great combo for up at Lake St. Clair. Just dragging this through the weeds. But I just want to point out that it is something that needs to be in everyone's arsenal for their Ned rig. But look at that combo. I mean, that's a Jade's Jigs skirted jig with a Nico Bates June Bug Halbermite. But here's a Brian Schmidt skirted jig, Ned jig. Caught some nice fish with that. But I'm just going to rig up one just to show you how I do it, and let's get to it. All right, got a Jade's Jig skirted Ned jig here and a Z-Man TRD. I just think that'd be a good looking combo, so let's rig it up. All right, first thing I do is pull the skirt down to where I can see entire hook shaft. Line up where my hook's going to come out of the plastic. All right, got it marked in my head. I'm going to run the hook straight down the shaft. Sorry, the core of the TRD. Push all your plastic down on the keeper, and there you go. Tell me that's not going to get ate.